I stepped off the plane from Singapore, my heart racing with anticipation. After 18 months of building my tech consulting firm from a tiny office in Marina Bay to a multi-million-dollar operation, I was finally coming home to surprise my grandmother for her 87th birthday. The humid air of Miami hit me like a warm embrace as I collected my luggage, but something felt off. My mother hadn't answered my calls in 3 days, and when I tried my father, he'd been strangely curt, saying everything was handled, and I shouldn't worry about flying back for just a birthday. But this wasn't just any birthday. Nana Josephine had raised me when my parents were too busy chasing their next big scheme. She taught me that real wealth wasn't measured in designer labels or luxury cars, but in integrity and kindness. She was the one who scraped together her savings to pay for my computer science degree, when my parents said college was a waste of money for a girl. She believed in me when no one else did. So I ignored their dismissals and booked the first flight out of Singapore. I wanted to see the look on her face when I walked through the door of the sprawling estate in Coral Gables, the home she'd built with her own hands after immigrating from Haiti in the 1960s. Back then, she'd started with nothing but a sewing machine and a dream, eventually building a bridal boutique empire that dressed 3 generations of Miami brides. But as my rideshare pulled up to the ornate gates at 2847 Venetian Way, that warm anticipation curdled into dread. The keypad at the gate blinked red when I entered the code I'd used since childhood. I tried again. Red. They'd locked me out of my own grandmother's house. I paid the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk, staring through the iron bars. The front lawn that Nana had always kept immaculate, with its birds of paradise and royal palms, looked like an abandoned lot. Weeds choked the flower beds. The fountain in the circular driveway was bone dry, filled with leaves and trash. Through the front windows, I could see the interior was dark. No warm lights welcoming me home. Something was very, very wrong. I didn't hesitate. I walked around to the side gate, the one that led to the pool area. The lock was rusted and cheap. Nothing like the high-end security system Nana had installed years ago. One solid kick, and it gave way with a metallic shriek. I pushed through the overgrown bougainvillea, my designer blazer catching on thorns, and made my way to the back of the house. The sliding glass door to the kitchen was unlocked. Not just unlocked, but slightly ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry and couldn't be bothered to secure it. I stepped inside and the smell nearly knocked me backward. It was the stench of rot, of spoiled food and something worse, something that made my stomach turn. "Nana?" I called out, my voice echoing in the darkness. No response, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant drip of a leaky faucet. I fumbled for the light switch. The kitchen blazed to life, revealing a disaster zone. Dirty dishes were piled in the sink, some with food so old it had turned to liquid. Empty champagne bottles lined the counter, along with takeout containers from expensive restaurants in South Beach. On the marble island sat a stack of unopened mail, mostly bills stamped with red final notice warnings. But it was the note on the refrigerator that made my blood run cold. Written in my mother's looping handwriting on a pink sticky note, "She only gets water and crackers. Don't waste money on real food." I ripped the note off the fridge, my hands trembling with a rage so pure it felt like lightning in my veins. Where was she? Where was my grandmother? I ran through the house, flipping on lights as I went. The formal dining room where we'd shared Sunday dinners was empty, the table covered in a layer of dust. The living room, with its hand-carved furniture from Haiti, looked untouched, except for the missing pieces. The antique clock that had belonged to Nana's mother was gone. So was the painting of Port-au-Prince that had hung above the fireplace since I was a child. They were selling her things. "Nana," I screamed, taking the stairs 2 at a time. "Nana, where are you?" The master suite was supposed to be hers. Instead, I found it transformed into what looked like a teenager's fantasy. There was a massive TV mounted on the wall. a gaming setup with multiple monitors, and clothes scattered everywhere. Men's clothes. My brother Devin's clothes. He'd taken over her room, pushed her out of her own sanctuary. I checked every bedroom upstairs. Empty. All of them stripped of the warm, lived-in feeling they'd once had. It was like walking through a museum of my childhood, except everything meaningful had been stolen or sold. That's when I heard it, a weak, rasping sound coming from somewhere below me. At first, I thought it was the air conditioning. But then I heard it again. It was crying. Someone was crying. I followed the sound back downstairs, past the kitchen, toward the utility hallway. There was a door I'd almost forgotten about, the old linen closet that Nana had converted into storage years ago. It had no windows, just a single bulb that hung from the ceiling. The door was closed, and there was a chair wedged under the handle from the outside. Someone had locked her in. I grabbed the chair and flung it aside, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I threw open the door, and the smell hit me like a physical force. Urine, sweat, sickness. The single bulb flickered weakly, casting shadows on the figure huddled in the corner. She was lying on a bare mattress that was stained and torn. Her silver hair, once styled in elegant braids, was matted and dirty. Her skin, which had always glowed with warmth, was ashen and paper-thin. She'd lost so much weight that I could see every bone in her body through the thin nightgown she wore. "Nana," I whispered, falling to my knees beside her. She flinched away from me, her eyes wild with fear. She didn't recognize me. She thought I was there to hurt her. "It's me," I said, my voice breaking. "It's Maya. I'm here. I'm here, Nana." Her eyes focused slowly, confusion giving way to recognition, then to hope. "Maya?" she croaked, her voice barely audible. "My Maya came back? Yes, I'm here. I'm going to get you out of here." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. As I gave the operator the address, I looked around the tiny space. There was a plastic cup filled with murky water on the floor, a sleeve of stale crackers, nothing else. They'd been keeping her alive on the bare minimum, just enough so she wouldn't die before they could empty her bank accounts. I spotted a leather-bound book tucked under the edge of the mattress. As the operator confirmed the ambulance was on its way, I pulled it out. It was Nana's journal, the one she'd kept for decades, recording her prayers and her thoughts. The last entry was dated just yesterday, written in a shaky hand that looked nothing like her usually graceful script. "Devin hurt me again today. He twisted my arm when I wouldn't give him the password to my investment account. He called me useless. He said I should hurry up and die so they can sell the house. I'm so hungry. The water they give me tastes like rust. I keep praying Maya will come home. Please God, send Maya home before it's too late." I read those words and something inside me fractured. Then it hardened into diamond-sharp resolve. They thought I was just some tech girl playing businesswoman overseas. They thought I was harmless, irrelevant, easy to manipulate, just like they'd tried to manipulate Nana. They had no idea who I'd become. They had no idea that the little consulting firm I built in Singapore was actually a venture capital powerhouse, specializing in hostile acquisitions and debt restructuring. They had no idea that I'd just closed a $50 million deal with a Chinese manufacturing conglomerate. They had no idea that while they were drinking champagne on Nana's credit cards, I'd been learning how to dismantle empires. But they were about to find out. The paramedics arrived within minutes, their faces grim as they assessed Nana's condition. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, possible broken bones from old injuries that had never been properly treated. They loaded her onto a stretcher with a gentleness that made me want to weep. As they wheeled her out to the ambulance, a neighbor appeared on her front lawn. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who'd lived across the street for as long as I could remember. She was on her phone, and when she saw me, her expression shifted from concern to suspicion. "I'm calling the police," she announced loudly. "I saw you break in. You're trespassing." I didn't have time for this. "Mrs. Chen, it's me, Maya Baptiste, Josephine's granddaughter." She squinted at me in the streetlight, recognition finally dawning. "Maya? But they said you abandoned the family. They said you ran off to Asia and never looked back." "They lied," I said, my voice steady despite the fury burning through me. "They've been abusing my grandmother. They locked her in a closet and left her to die." "I'm the one who called the ambulance." Mrs. Chen's hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God, I knew something was wrong. I haven't seen Josephine in months. Your mother kept saying she was at some luxury care facility in Palm Beach, getting the best treatment. She showed me pictures on her phone." Of course she did. I could picture it perfectly. My mother in her designer sunglasses, swiping through stock photos of fancy nursing homes, while Nana was locked in a closet 20 feet away. "When did you last see my parents?" I asked. "They left 3 days ago. Your mother posted on Facebook that they were going to the Bahamas for a much-needed vacation. She said something about celebrating your father's business success." The Bahamas, of course. While Nana was dying, they were island hopping on her dime. I climbed into the back of the ambulance with Nana, holding her fragile hand as we sped toward Jackson Memorial Hospital. Her eyes kept closing, then fluttering open again, as if she was afraid that if she fell asleep, she'd wake up back in that closet. "Stay with me, Nana," I whispered. "You're safe now. No one's ever going to hurt you again." At the hospital, a doctor with kind eyes and a firm handshake introduced himself as Dr. Patel. He listened to my explanation with growing horror, making notes on his tablet. When I showed him the journal entry, his jaw tightened. "This is a clear case of elder abuse," he said. "I'm required by law to report this to Adult Protective Services and the police. Miss Baptiste, I need to ask, are you responsible for her care?" "No," I said. "My parents are. They live in her house. They've been living there for the past 5 years, supposedly to take care of her." He nodded slowly. "And where are they now?" "The Bahamas, living it up on her credit cards." Dr. Patel's expression hardened. "We're going to do everything we can for your grandmother, but I have to be honest with you. She's in critical condition. The malnutrition alone could have caused irreversible organ damage. The next 48 hours are crucial." I watched through the window as nurses worked on Nana, inserting IVs, checking her vital signs, treating her like the human being she was, instead of the burden my family had decided she'd become. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a notification from Instagram. My mother had posted a new story. I tapped on it, and my screen filled with images of turquoise water and white sand beaches. There she was, Claudette Baptiste, in a wide-brimmed hat and a flowing caftan, holding a cocktail garnished with fresh fruit. The caption read, "Finally taking time for self-care. You can't pour from an empty cup. Grateful for family and blessings. I wish everyone a beautiful time. Blessings are a gift for making memories." How positive perspective with everyone in your life. Wait, I have to pause the video. Devin shouted at the camera, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. "Shout out to the Family Trust Fund for making this possible. We earned this vacation." Family Trust Fund. The words echoed in my head. There was no Family Trust Fund. There was only Nana's retirement account, the one she'd carefully built over 40 years of hard work. They were spending her life savings on bottle service and resort suites. Family Trust Fund. The words echoed in my head. I took screenshots of everything. Then I scrolled back through their posts from the past few weeks. There were dozens of them. Designer shopping sprees on Lincoln Road, VIP tables at Miami nightclubs, a leased Bentley parked in front of expensive restaurants. All of it funded by the woman currently fighting for her life in the ICU. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. I opened my phone's contacts and scrolled past my parents' names. I stopped at a number I hadn't called in over a year. Leonard Ashford, Nana's attorney. He was 82 years old now, technically retired, but still sharp as a knife. He'd been handling Nana's legal affairs since before I was born. He answered on the third ring, his voice rough with sleep. "Do you know what time it is?" he asked. "Leonard, it's Maya Baptiste. I need your help. It's about Nana." The sleep cleared from his voice immediately. "What happened?" he asked. I told him everything. The closet, the journal, the note on the fridge. The Instagram posts from the Bahamas. When I finished, the silence on the other end of the line was so heavy I thought the call had dropped. "Leonard?" "I'm here," he said finally. "I'm just trying to comprehend how people could be so monstrous to their own mother. Maya, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not confront them yet. Let them think they're safe. Let them think you're just the worried granddaughter who showed up too late." "What do you mean, too late?" "They have power of attorney over Josephine," he said, and my heart sank. "She signed it 6 months ago. I advised against it, but she said she wanted to trust her children. She said they promised to take care of everything so she wouldn't have to worry. But she was coerced." I protested. "Look at her condition. This can't be legal." "You're right. But proving coercion takes time. And right now, they have legal control over her finances and medical decisions. If they find out you're back, if they realize you're going to fight them, they could transfer her to a facility where we can't reach her. They could make decisions about her care that we can't reverse. So what do I do?" "You keep your grandmother alive," Leonard said. "You stay by her side, and you make sure the hospital knows not to accept any orders from your parents. I'll file an emergency petition with the court first thing Monday morning to have the power of attorney revoked and to appoint you as guardian. But we need evidence, Maya. We need documentation of the abuse. I have her journal. I have photos of the conditions I found her in. I have screenshots of them partying in the Bahamas while she was starving." "Good. That's a start. But we need more. We need financial records showing where the money went. We need witness statements. And most importantly, we need Josephine to wake up and confirm that she wants to revoke their authority." I looked through the window at Nana's still form, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped steadily. "What if she doesn't wake up?" I asked. "Then we fight with what we have," Leonard said grimly. "But I've known Josephine for 40 years. That woman is a survivor. She didn't build an empire from nothing just to let her children destroy it. Have faith, Maya." I hung up and sat down in the uncomfortable plastic chair in the waiting room. Around me, other families waited for news about their loved ones. A young couple held hands, praying quietly. An elderly man dozed with a cup of cold coffee in his lap. Life and death existed side by side in this place, separated only by swinging doors and the skill of exhausted medical staff. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a FaceTime call from my mother. I stared at her name on the screen, debating whether to answer. Finally, I accepted the call, but kept my camera off. And then her face filled the screen, sun-kissed and relaxed. Behind her, I could see a pristine beach and a resort pool. "Maya," she exclaimed, her voice syrupy sweet. "Baby girl, we saw you tried to call. Is everything okay?" "Oh, where's Nana?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. My mother's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. "You're here? Why didn't you tell us? We could have postponed our trip." "I wanted to surprise Nana for her birthday. Maybe I should visit her at Ocean View Estates tomorrow." "No!" The word came out sharp, panicked. She caught herself and smiled again. "I mean, she's resting. The doctor said no visitors for a few days. She had a little spell. Nothing serious, but they want her to rest. Why don't you wait until we get back? We'll all go visit together." A little spell? That's what she was calling starvation and imprisonment. "Sure, Mom," I said sweetly. "When are you coming back?" "We have 3 more days here. Your father booked this amazing excursion package. Deep sea fishing, spa days, the works. We needed this, Maya." You don't understand how stressful it's been taking care of an elderly parent. I'm sure, I said. Well, don't let me interrupt your vacation. Enjoy the fishing. We will, baby. Love you. She blew a kiss at the camera and ended the call. I sat there staring at my blank screen, marveling at how effortlessly the lies had flowed from her mouth. She'd always been good at that, ever since I was a child. When I was 8 and she forgot to pick me up from school, leaving me waiting on the curb for 3 hours, she told the principal that she'd been in a minor car accident and was too shaken to call. When I was 12 and she missed my science fair because she was at the casino, she swore she'd been at the hospital with a sick friend. The lies were second nature to her. But this was different. This wasn't a forgotten recital or a missed birthday. This was attempted murder, dressed up in designer clothes and Instagram filters. A nurse approached me, her scrubs decorated with cheerful cartoon characters that seemed absurdly out of place. "Miss Baptiste, your grandmother is stable. Would you like to sit with her?" I followed her into the ICU. The room was dimly lit, machines beeping softly in the corners. Nana looked so small in that hospital bed, her face relaxed in sleep, swallowed up by white sheets and medical equipment. I pulled a chair close and took her hand. "I'm here, Nana," I whispered, "and I'm not going anywhere." Her fingers twitched in mine, a slight movement that might have been accidental or might have been her way of saying she heard me. I spent the night in that chair, watching her breathe, counting each rise and fall of her chest, like a prayer. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting medications, speaking in soft, respectful tones. They treated her like she mattered, like she was a person worthy of care and dignity. It was more than my own family had done. Around 3 in the morning, my phone lit up with a text message from an unknown number. "We know what you found. Stay out of family business. This doesn't concern you." I stared at that message, my exhausted brain trying to make sense of it. They knew I was back. Somehow, despite my mother's performance on the phone, they knew I'd found Nana, which meant they were having someone watch the house or the hospital. I texted back, "Everything concerning Nana concerns me. See you in 3 days." The response came immediately. "You'll regret this." I turned off my phone and tucked it into my purse. Let 'em think their threats would scare me away. Let them think I was the same naive girl who left for college 7 years ago. They were about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating women. As dawn broke over Miami, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Nana's eyes fluttered open. She looked confused at first, scanning the unfamiliar room with growing panic. Then her gaze found me, and she relaxed. "Maya," she breathed. "You're really here. I thought I dreamed you." "I'm really here," I said, leaning forward. "Nana, I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be honest with me." "Can you do that?" She nodded weakly. "Did you sign a power of attorney giving Mom and Dad control over your finances and medical decisions?" Her eyes filled with tears. "They said it was just paperwork. They said it would make things easier, that I wouldn't have to worry about bills anymore. I was so tired, Maya. I just wanted to rest." "When did they start locking you in the closet?" 3 months ago, maybe 4. I don't remember exactly. Devin said I was wandering at night, that I might hurt myself. He said it was for my own safety. Her voice broke, but I wasn't wandering. I was trying to get to the phone. I wanted to call you. "Did they hit you?" She closed her eyes. "Devin did, when I wouldn't give him the password to my brokerage account. He said I was being stubborn. He said if I loved him, I'd help him with his business investment." "What business investment?" "I don't know. He never said, but he needed $50,000 right away. He showed me pictures of houses he wanted to buy, properties he was going to flip. He said he'd pay me back double." I felt sick. There was no business investment. There were no properties. There was only Devin's gambling habit and his taste for expensive nightclubs. He'd stolen $50,000 from his own mother and spent it on bottle service and sports betting. Nana, I said gently, squeezing her hand, do you want them to continue having control over your life? No, she whispered. But then fear clouded her eyes. But what choice do I have? They said if I ever tried to take it back, they'd put me in a state facility. They said I'd die alone with strangers. They said you'd abandon me in Singapore and would never come home. Rage, pure and cold, settled over me like a cloak. I would never abandon you, and they're never going to hurt you again. Do you trust me? She studied my face for a long moment, and I saw the wheels turning in her mind. This was the woman who'd negotiated with banks for business loans when they wouldn't lend to black women. This was the woman who'd gone head-to-head with landlords and city officials and rival businesswomen, always coming out on top. The body was weak, but the mind was still sharp. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. "I need you to play along," I said, leaning close so only she could hear. "When they come back from the Bahamas, I need you to pretend you're confused. I need you to act like you don't remember what happened. I need them to think they've won." "Why?" she asked. "Because the moment they know you're alert and planning to fight back, they'll move you somewhere I can't reach you. They'll forge more documents, drain more accounts. But if they think you're too far gone to testify against them, they'll get comfortable. They'll make mistakes, and I'll be watching every move they make." A small, fierce smile crossed Nana's face. "My Maya, always thinking 3 steps ahead. You got that from me, you know." "I know." "What happens when they realize you're the one who found me?" "They'll try to make you look bad. They'll say you're money hungry, that you're manipulating a sick old woman." "Let them try," I said. "I've got documentation of everything. The conditions I found you in, the journal entries, their social media posts. And I've got something else they don't know about." "What?" "I bought their debt." Nana's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my tablet and opened a secure file. While I was building my business in Singapore, I kept tabs on the family finances. I noticed Dad had taken out 3 mortgages against this house without telling you. When the bank started foreclosure proceedings, I had my company buy the note. As of last week, I own the debt on this property, which means I can foreclose whenever I want. And it's going to stay your house, but they don't need to know that yet. When they find out I hold the mortgage, they'll panic. Panicked people make bad decisions, and bad decisions create evidence. Nana was quiet for a moment, absorbing this information. Then she laughed, a sound that turned into a cough but still held genuine amusement. "You really did learn from me. Your grandfather, God rest his soul, he always said revenge is a dish best served cold. But I say revenge is a dish best served with legal documentation and financial leverage." "Exactly." Over the next 2 days, I orchestrated everything with military precision. First, I hired a private security firm to post guards outside Nana's hospital room around the clock. Their instructions were simple. No family members allowed in without my explicit permission, and if anyone tried to move her or make medical decisions, they were to call me immediately and stall. Second, I met with Leonard Ashford in his home office, a book-lined room that smelled of pipe tobacco and old leather. We spent 6 hours going through every piece of evidence I'd collected. He took notes on yellow legal pads, his weathered hands surprisingly steady. "This is solid," he said finally. The journal alone would be compelling, but combined with the photographic evidence, the medical reports, and the financial records showing unexplained withdrawals, we can absolutely get the power of attorney revoked. The question is whether we can get them criminally charged. What would it take? We'd need proof of intent. We'd need to show that they deliberately withheld food and medical care with the intention of causing harm or hastening death. The closet is damning, but a good defense attorney could argue they thought they were preventing her from wandering and hurting herself. What about the financial theft? trickier. If she signed over power of attorney willingly, even under duress that we can't prove, they technically had the legal right to manage her accounts. Unless we can show they forged her signature on specific transactions or exceeded the scope of the POA, the theft charges might not stick. I didn't say that. Leonard smiled, a crafty expression that reminded me why Nana had trusted him so long. I said the criminal charges might not stick. But there are other ways to ensure justice. Civil court has a lower burden of proof. We can sue them for financial elder abuse, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We can drain every penny they stole, and then some. We can make sure they never benefit from Josephine's assets again. That's not enough. I want them in prison. Then we need them to confess. We need them to say, on record, that they knowingly harmed Josephine. We need them to incriminate themselves. How do we do that? Leonard leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. We give them what they want. We make them think they've won. And then we watch them celebrate their victory so loudly and proudly that they confess to their crimes without even realizing it. I understood what he was suggesting. It was risky, maybe even dangerous. But it was also exactly what Nana had taught me. When your enemy thinks they have the upper hand, that's when they expose their weaknesses. What do you need from me? I asked. I need you to wear a wire. Florida is a two-party consent state for recording. But there's an exception for situations where there's reasonable expectation that a crime is being committed or discussed. Given the evidence we already have, I can get a judge to sign off on it. But Maya, you need to understand the risks. If they find the wire, if they realize what you're doing, this could get dangerous. These are people who locked their own mother in a closet. There's no telling what they might do if they feel cornered. I don't care about the danger, I said. I care about making sure they never hurt anyone again. On the third day, as the sun set over Biscayne Bay, I got the text I'd been waiting for. Flight lands at 9 p.m. We're coming straight to the hospital. See you soon, baby girl. I'd spent the day preparing. Nana and I had rehearsed her role, me gently coaching her on how to appear confused and compliant. The security team knew to let my parents up to her room, but to stay alert. And Leonard had procured a court order, allowing me to record any conversations related to Nana's care. The wire technician from the private investigation firm had arrived at 7. She was a woman in her 40s named Rosa, who'd spent 20 years with the FBI before starting her own company. She taped the small recording device to my torso with practiced efficiency, hiding it under a loose blouse. "You'll feel it at first," she said, "but try to forget it's there. Act natural. Don't touch your stomach or chest. And whatever you do, don't let them hug you tightly. The device is thin, but if they feel something hard, it'll raise questions." At 8:45, I positioned myself in the ICU waiting room where I could see the elevator. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. My palms were sweaty. I felt like I might throw up. The elevator dinged, the doors opened, and there they were. My mother stepped out first, wearing a designer sundress and carrying a leather tote that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her skin was bronzed, her hair freshly highlighted. She looked like she'd just come from a spa day, not a deathbed vigil. My father followed, checking his phone. He'd gained weight, his stomach straining against his polo shirt. The gold chain around his neck was new, thick, and ostentatious. And then Devon, my brother, slouching along behind them, like a teenager forced to attend a family function. He had the red-rimmed eyes of someone who'd spent the flight drinking. His designer sneakers probably cost $1,000. Everything about him screamed new money and zero class. My mother spotted me first. Her face transformed into a mask of maternal concern as she rushed forward, arms outstretched. "Maya, oh my baby, you've been here this whole time?" I let her hug me, keeping my torso rigid so she wouldn't feel the wire. Where else would I be? You said Nana was at Ocean View Estates, but when I called them, they said they had no patient by that name. So I checked all the hospitals until I found her here. My mother's smile flickered. Well, we must have gotten the names confused. There are so many facilities. The important thing is she's getting excellent care. Is she, though? I pulled back and looked at her directly. Mom, when was the last time you actually saw her? We saw her before we left for vacation, my father interjected, coming up behind my mother. He tried for a paternal smile, but it looked more like a grimace. She was fine. This must have happened suddenly. Suddenly? I repeated. The doctors say she's been malnourished for months. They found old fractures that were never treated. You're talking to Adult Protective Services right now about elder abuse. The color drained from Devon's face. My father's jaw tightened, but my mother, ever the actress, burst into tears. This is exactly what we were afraid of, she wailed. The nurses at that facility, we knew they weren't taking proper care of her. That's why we hired them, to watch over her while we took a short vacation to recharge. We've been so stressed, Maya. You don't know what it's like. Then show me, I said. Show me the contract with the facility. Show me the name of the nursing company you hired. My mother's tears stopped abruptly. What? You said you hired nurses. What company? What are their names? When did you last pay them? I don't remember off the top of my head. She snapped. I'm too upset to think straight. My mother is lying in a hospital bed and you're interrogating me? I'm trying to understand how she ended up in the condition she's in, I said calmly. The police are going to ask these same questions, Mom. Adult Protective Services is going to ask. So maybe you should start getting your story straight. Story? My father's voice rose. This isn't a story, young lady. This is our lives. This is our family. And you've been gone for how long? 18 months? 2 years? You don't get to swoop in and act like you know what's been happening. You're right, I said, switching tactics. I haven't been here. I've been building a business, working 80-hour weeks, trying to make something of myself. But I sent money. I sent $15,000 to you every month to help with Nana's care. Where did that money go? The silence that followed was deafening. Devon looked at my father. My father looked at my mother. And my mother looked at me with something like hatred brewing in her eyes. That money went to her care, she said coldly. Medical expenses, medication, special food. It's not cheap taking care of an elderly person. Then you'll have receipts, right? Bank statements showing where the money went? This is insulting, my mother hissed. I'm not going to stand here and be accused by my own daughter of neglecting my mother. If you're so concerned, Maya, where were you? You were off living your fancy life in Singapore, staying in 5-star hotels, eating at expensive restaurants. Don't act like you're better than us. I never said I was better. I just said I want to see the receipts. You want to see receipts? Devon suddenly exploded, stepping toward me with his fists clenched. You want to play accountant? Fine. You know what your precious Nana did? She cut us off. She changed all her passwords. She was going to cut us out of the will completely and leave everything to you. So we did what we had to do to survive. Devon, my father grabbed his arm, but it was too late. We did what we had to do? I repeated slowly. What does that mean exactly? Devon's face was red, his words slurring slightly from the alcohol and anger. It means we weren't going to let her give away our inheritance to some ungrateful brat who abandoned the family. We earned that money, Maya. We stayed here. We took care of her for years. You don't get to show up at the last minute and take what's ours. So you locked her in a closet? I said softly. You starved her? You beat her when she wouldn't give you her passwords? Nobody beat anyone, my father said quickly. He's upset. He's not thinking clearly. But Devon was on a roll now, too drunk and angry to stop. Yeah, I locked the door. So what? She was confused, wandering around at night, breaking things. I was protecting her from herself. And if I had to get a little rough to make her see reason, that's what fathers do. That's what sons do. We make tough decisions. Get a little rough? I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. I could feel Rosa's recorder capturing every syllable. Is that what you call breaking her arm? It was an accident, Devin shouted. She fell. After you twisted her arm until she gave you the password, I said. That's what her journal says. That's what she told the doctors. My mother moved fast, crossing the space between us in 3 quick steps and getting right in my face. You found her journal? You've been going through her things? You searched the house? I found her dying in a closet, I said. So yes, I searched the house. I documented everything, the conditions you kept her in. The note on the fridge telling whoever was feeding her to keep it minimal because it's expensive. Your words, Mom, your handwriting. She slapped me. The crack of her palm against my cheek echoed in the hallway. A passing nurse stopped, staring. The security guard I'd hired started moving toward us. You have no right, my mother seethed, her face inches from mine. No right to come back here and tear this family apart. We did everything for her. Everything. And what did we get? Complaints, criticism, demands. Well, we're done. You want to take care of her so badly? Fine. She's your problem now. But don't expect a penny from us. Don't expect any help. I don't want your help, I said. I want you to face what you've done. We haven't done anything wrong, my father said. But his voice lacked conviction. We made difficult decisions in a difficult situation. Any court would understand that. Would they understand the champagne in the Bahamas? I asked. Would they understand the Bentley you leased with her credit card? Would they understand the $50,000 Devon withdrew from her brokerage account for a business investment that never existed? You've been spying on us, my mother breathed. You've been tracking our accounts. I've been tracking Nana's accounts. You know, the ones you stole from. The ones you emptied while she was drinking rust-flavored water in a closet. Devin lunged at me, his hands reaching for my throat. But the security guard was faster, intercepting him and slamming him against the wall. Another guard appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, restraining my brother as he thrashed and screamed obscenities. You're all going to pay for this, Devin shouted. Do you hear me? All of you. That house is mine. That money is mine. She's just a bitter old woman who's going to die anyway. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. Nurses had gathered in the hallway now, along with a hospital security supervisor. The elevator dinged and 2 police officers stepped out, called by the floor staff about the disturbance. They took in the scene. Devin, restrained and furious. My mother's face twisted with rage. My father looking defeated and old. What's going on here? One of the officers asked. My family, I said calmly, just confessed to elder abuse, and I have it all on recording. The look on my mother's face was almost worth everything they'd put Nana through. Almost. The police separated us, taking statements in different areas of the hospital. I was escorted to a private consultation room where I met with Detective Morrison, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. I showed her the recording device, explained how I'd obtained permission to use it, and played her the entire conversation. Her expression grew progressively darker as she listened to Devin's rant, to my mother's threats, to my father's weak defenses. When it ended, she looked at me with something like respect. This is textbook elder abuse, she said. Financial exploitation, physical abuse, neglect. With this recording and the medical evidence, we have more than enough for charges. But I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? This is your family. Once we arrest them, there's no going back. They stopped being my family when they locked my grandmother in a closet, I said. Do what needs to be done. Within an hour, my parents and Devin were in handcuffs. The charges read like a criminal's greatest hits: elder abuse, financial exploitation, false imprisonment, assault. Bail was set at $200,000 each, an amount I knew they couldn't pay because I'd already frozen all of Nana's accounts that they had access to. They'd be spending the night in jail, and probably many nights after that. I went back to Nana's room. She was awake, watching the door with anxious eyes. When she saw me, relief flooded her face. "Did it work?" she whispered. "It worked. They confessed to everything. The police just arrested them." Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of vindication, of justice finally being served. "My smart girl," she murmured. "My brilliant, strong girl. Your grandfather would be so proud." I sat beside her bed and held her hand. "Nana, Leonard has prepared new documents. Once you sign them, the power of attorney goes to me. I'll manage your affairs until you're well enough to take over again. Is that what you want?" "It's more than I could have hoped for," she said. "But Maya, what about your business in Singapore? You can't just abandon it." "I'm not abandoning it. I'm relocating. My partners understand. I can run everything from Miami just as easily as from Singapore. And honestly, I want to be here. I want to help you rebuild." "Rebuild what? They've probably destroyed everything." I pulled out my tablet and opened a secure file. "Actually, they haven't. Remember those 3 mortgages Dad took out? I bought all of them. I own the notes, which means I control the debt. And I have no intention of foreclosing. The house stays yours, Mana. I'll handle the payments until you're back on your feet." "But that must have cost millions." "It was a good investment," I said with a smile. "Besides, I learned from the best. You taught me that real wealth isn't about hoarding money. It's about protecting the people you love and building something that lasts." She squeezed my hand. "I taught you well." Over the next week, the pieces fell into place with satisfying precision. Leonard filed for emergency guardianship, and the judge granted it immediately based on the evidence of abuse. The power of attorney was revoked. I became Nana's legal guardian with full authority over her care and finances. The district attorney's office, energized by the clear-cut nature of the case, moved forward with prosecuting my parents and Devon. Their lawyer attempted to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA wasn't interested. This was the kind of case that made headlines, the kind that reminded people to check on their elderly relatives. I spent my days at the hospital with Nana, watching her slowly regain strength. The nurses said it was remarkable how quickly she was bouncing back once she was properly nourished and felt safe. She started physical therapy, determined to walk again without assistance. "I'm not going to let them take my strength," she said fiercely one afternoon as the therapist helped her stand. "I'm not going to let them win even a little bit." At night I went back to the house on Venetian Way. I'd hired a restoration company to deep clean every inch of the property. They removed Devon's things from Nana's room, restoring it to its original elegance. They repaired the damaged lawn, fixed the fountain, replanted the flower beds. Slowly, the house was becoming a home again instead of a crime scene. I found more evidence of their theft as I went through the paperwork they'd left scattered around. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals of $5,000 and $10,000 at a time. Credit card bills for luxury items and vacations. Receipts for jewelry and electronics that had mysteriously disappeared. The most damning find was in Devon's room. Hidden in a false bottom drawer, I discovered a ledger where he'd meticulously tracked everything he'd stolen. It was almost impressive in its thoroughness. Dates, amounts, what the money was spent on. He treated robbing his grandmother like a business venture, complete with records and projections. I photographed every page and sent them to both Leonard and Detective Morrison. The evidence kept mounting, building an insurmountable case against them. 3 weeks after the arrests, I received a call from my mother. She'd been released on bail after her sister, my Aunt Patricia, had scraped together the money. Her voice on the phone was different from the honeyed tones I was used to. It was flat, emotionless. "Maya, we need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Please, just 5 minutes. I'll come to you anywhere you want." "Somewhere public, if it makes you feel safer." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in Coconut Grove. Neutral territory where there would be witnesses. Leonard insisted on coming with me, positioning himself at a nearby table where he could observe. My mother arrived exactly on time, and the change in her appearance shocked me. She'd aged years in weeks. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a simple t-shirt. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked like a different person. She sat down across from me without ordering anything. "I'm not going to try to justify what we did," she said quietly. "I can't. There's no excuse for treating Mama the way we treated her." "Then why did you do it?" I asked. She was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. "Because we felt entitled to it. Because your father made some bad investments and we were drowning in debt. Because it was easier to see Mama as a bank account than as a person. Because I was raised to believe that taking care of yourself comes first, and I taught that to Devin too." "So you're blaming your parents now?" asked me where. "No, I'm explaining, not excusing. I made my choices. We all did. And now we're paying for them." She looked up, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. "I'm going to prison, Maya. My lawyer says with the evidence you collected, there's no way around it. 5 to 10 years minimum. Your father is looking at the same. Devin might get more because of the assault." And they said, "I know. I called because I wanted to tell you something before the trial. I wanted you to hear it from me, not from a prosecutor or a judge. What we did to Mama was unforgivable, but what we did to you was worse." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "We poisoned you against her. When you were a teenager, when you were trying to decide whether to move out or stay, we told you Mama was difficult, demanding, ungrateful. We made you think taking care of her would destroy your life. We pushed you away so we could have her to ourselves, so we could control her without you interfering." My chest tightened. I remembered those conversations, the subtle and not so subtle hints that I should focus on my own life, that Nana would be fine with them, that I was young and shouldn't be burdened with an elderly relative. "You manipulated me." "Yes, and I'm sorry. You and Mama, you had something special. She saw herself in you. She wanted to mentor you, to pass on everything she'd learned. And we took that away from both of you because we were selfish and greedy." A tear rolled down her cheek, real or performative, I couldn't tell anymore. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that despite everything, despite the monster I became, I am proud of you. You turned out better than any of us had a right to expect. You're the best part of this family." I looked at this woman who'd given birth to me, but had never really been a mother. I felt pity, maybe, but not forgiveness. That would take years, if it came at all. "Is that all?" I asked. She nodded, standing up. "That's all. Take care of Mama. Make sure she knows I'm sorry, even if she can't forgive me either." She walked out of the coffee shop, and I watched her go. Leonard came over and sat in her vacated chair. "You did the right thing," he said. "Meeting with her, I mean. Whatever happens next, you'll never wonder if there was something left unsaid. She doesn't get to be redeemed by one conversation," I said. "She doesn't get to apologize and walk away feeling better about herself." "No," Leonard agreed, "but she does get to face what she's done. And sometimes that's the harshest punishment of all." The trial began on a crisp October morning. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, all eager to cover the sensational case of a family who'd abused their elderly matriarch. Inside, the courtroom was packed with spectators, journalists, and even some of Nana's old friends from the community. Nana sat in the front row in a wheelchair, looking frail but composed, flanked by me and Leonard. She'd insisted on attending despite the emotional toll it would take. "I need to look them in the eye," she'd said. I need them to see that I survived. My parents and Devin sat at the defense table with their lawyers. They didn't look at us. They didn't look at each other. They stared straight ahead like prisoners waiting for execution, which in a sense they were. The prosecution's case was devastating in its thoroughness. They presented the photos I'd taken of the closet, blown up to poster size so the jury could see every horrifying detail. They played the recording of my family's confessions in the hospital hallway. They called medical experts who testified about the severity of Nana's injuries and malnutrition. And then they called Nana to the stand. She'd been dreading this moment, I knew. Having to recount her trauma in front of a room full of strangers was cruel, even if it was necessary. But as she wheeled herself to the witness stand and was sworn in, something remarkable happened. Her fear transformed into strength. The prosecutor was a woman named Jennifer Santos, and she approached Nana with gentle respect. "Mrs. Baptiste, can you tell the jury what your life was like before your son and daughter-in-law moved into your home?" Nana's voice was soft but steady. "I was independent. I ran my business until I was 75. I took care of my home, my garden. I had friends over for Sunday dinner. I traveled when I wanted to. I was alive. And after they moved in? At first, it was fine. They said they wanted to help me as I got older, make sure I wasn't lonely. Richard had just lost his job, and Claudette said they were struggling. I loved them. They were my family, so I opened my home. When did things change?" Nana's hands trembled slightly in her lap. About a year after they moved in, Richard started asking to borrow money. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. He said it was for job hunting expenses, for professional clothes, for networking events. I gave it to him because I wanted to help. But the amounts got bigger, and he never paid anything back. Did you confront him about it? I tried. He'd get angry, tell me I didn't understand how hard it was to find work at his age. Claudette would cry and say I was making them feel like failures, so I'd back down. I'd write another check. "What about your grandson, Devin?" Nana's expression darkened. Devin was worse. He didn't even pretend to be struggling. He'd come to me demanding money for his business ventures. When I asked what business, he'd get vague. Once I found out he was gambling, I told him I wouldn't give him another cent until he got help. That's when he got violent. Can you describe what happened? He grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back. He said I owed him because he was family, because I had more money than I could spend. He said if I didn't give him what he wanted, he'd make sure I regretted it. Her voice broke. He was my grandson. I'd raised him when he was little. I'd taken him to school, taught him to tie his shoes, and he was threatening me. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of a journalist's pen scratching across a notepad. "Mrs. Baptiste, when did they start locking you in the closet?" "About 4 months ago. I'd been getting weaker because they'd reduce my food. I complained to a neighbor, and she offered to call for help. Devin found out. He said I was embarrassing the family, spreading lies about them. That's when he moved me into the closet. He said it was temporary, just until I learned to keep my mouth shut." "How often were you locked in there?" "At first, just at night. Then during the day too, when they had guests or went out. Eventually it was all the time. I was only let out to use the bathroom, and even then, someone watched me. I wasn't allowed to make phone calls. I wasn't allowed to answer the door." "What did they feed you?" "Water and crackers, mostly. Sometimes plain rice. Claudette said feeding me was expensive, and they couldn't afford to waste money on special meals. But I saw them eating steaks. I saw them ordering takeout from fancy restaurants. They just didn't think I deserved to eat." The prosecutor pulled out a blown-up image of the note from the fridge. "Do you recognize this?" Nana nodded. "That's Claudette's handwriting. That was her rule. Don't feed me too much." "How did that make you feel?" "Like I wasn't human. Like I was a burden they were trying to get rid of without actually killing me themselves. They wanted me to waste away slowly, so they could tell people it was natural, just old age. Did you ever think you were going to die in that closet? Perry. Nana looked directly at my mother then, her gaze unwavering. Yes, I prayed every day that it would be quick, that I wouldn't suffer. And I prayed that Maya would somehow know I needed her, that she'd come save me. I knew she was the only one who would. End. The prosecutor returned to her table and picked up Nana's journal. Mrs. Baptiste, is this your journal? Yes. Did anyone tell you to write these entries? No, I wrote them for myself and for God. I thought if I died, at least there'd be a record of what they'd done. The prosecutor read several entries aloud, and by the time she finished, 2 jurors were wiping their eyes. The judge called for a short recess, and Nana was wheeled back to me. She looked exhausted, but also relieved. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, she whispered. You were amazing, I told her. You told the truth, and they can't hide from it anymore. The defense's case was weak because there was no defending the indefensible. Their lawyers tried to argue that my parents had been overwhelmed, that they'd made mistakes but hadn't intended harm. They tried to paint Devin as someone with mental health issues who hadn't been in his right mind. But when Devin took the stand in his own defense, he destroyed any sympathy the jury might have had. Under cross-examination, he became belligerent and defensive. He insisted he'd been protecting his grandmother, that she was confused. When the prosecutor asked him about the journal entry where Nana described him twisting her arm, he sneered. Old people exaggerate, he said. She probably bumped into something and blamed me because she was mad I wouldn't give her money for her shopping habit. Her shopping habit? The prosecutor repeated. Mrs. Baptiste was locked in a closet. How was she shopping? Before that, when she could still get around, she was always buying stuff she didn't need. The financial records show that in the 6 months before she was hospitalized, your grandmother made no personal purchases except for her medication. Meanwhile, you withdrew $70,000 from her accounts. What were those withdrawals for? Devin shifted uncomfortably. Living expenses. The house is expensive to maintain. Yet the utilities were 3 months past due. The property taxes hadn't been paid. The mortgage was in default. Where did the $70,000 go, Mr. Baptiste? I don't have to answer that. Actually, you do. You're under oath. Devin's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. Devin glared at the prosecutor. Fine. I invested it. What? Cryptocurrency? Real estate deals? Opportunities? Opportunities that lost all the money? She wouldn't have understood. Did you tell your grandmother you were using her money for risky investments? So you stole it? I didn't steal anything. That money was going to be mine eventually anyway. I was just accessing my inheritance early. The prosecutor smiled. Your inheritance from a woman who was still alive and who you locked in a closet? Does that strike you as ethical? I don't have to justify my family's financial arrangements to you. Strong. You're right. You have to justify them to the jury. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, their verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Elder abuse, financial exploitation, false imprisonment, assault. My father received 12 years. My mother got 10. And Devin, the golden child who'd never faced consequences in his life, was sentenced to 15 years. As the bailiffs led them away in chains, my mother looked back at me one last time. I saw no defiance in her eyes anymore, just a hollow emptiness. My father kept his eyes down, defeated. And Devin was still ranting, insisting this was all a misunderstanding, that we'd all regret this. Nana sat beside me, and I felt her hand grip mine tightly. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Not quite, I said. Now comes the rebuilding. The estate went through probate, and with Leonard's help, we untangled the financial mess my parents had created. They'd taken out credit cards in Nana's name, forged loan documents, emptied retirement accounts. The total damage was close to $500,000. but I had resources they'd never known about. The consulting firm I built in Singapore wasn't just successful, it was massively profitable. I'd been quietly investing my earnings in real estate and tech startups, building a portfolio that now generated passive income in the seven figures. I paid off the fraudulent debts. I settled the mortgages. I restored Nana's accounts to what they should have been. And when she protested that it was too much, that she couldn't let me sacrifice my own future for her, I reminded her of what she'd taught me. You invested in me when no one else would, I said. You paid for my education. You believed in me. This isn't charity, Nana. This is me paying it forward. This is what family is supposed to do. With her health improving daily, Nana made a decision that surprised everyone. She reopened her bridal boutique, not the original location, which had been sold years ago, but a new modern shop in the design district. She hired young designers, many of them immigrants like she'd been, and gave them opportunities to showcase their work. I built this once from nothing, she told me as we stood in the empty retail space, envisioning what it would become. I can build it again. I'm not dead yet, and I'm not going to spend my remaining years being a victim. Those three tried to break me, but I'm Haitian. We don't break. We bend, and then we come back stronger. The boutique reopened 6 months after the trial. The grand opening was covered by local media, not because of the scandal, although they mentioned it, but because of the Phoenix from the Ashes narrative. An 87-year-old woman who'd survived abuse by her own family was now employing 12 people and creating beautiful art. Nana stood at the entrance in an elegant cream suit, greeting customers with the grace and warmth that had always been her hallmark. I watched from across the street, keeping my distance so this could be her moment, not mine. My phone rang. It was a number from the correctional facility. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Maya? It was Devon's voice, scratchy through the prison phone system. Listen, I need to talk to you. I'm not interested in hearing apologies, Devon. I'm not apologizing. I need a favor. I almost laughed. You need a favor? From me? After everything? I'm in trouble in here. Some guys found out about the case, about what we did. They're not exactly fans of people who hurt old ladies. I need you to put money in my commissary account. Maybe hire a lawyer to get me transferred to a different facility. No. Come on, Maya. We're still family. No, Devon, we're not. Family doesn't lock each other in closets. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't beat each other. You lost the right to call me family the day you hurt Nana. You can't just abandon us. Watch me. I hung up. He called back immediately. I blocked the number. He tried from different numbers over the next few days, each time more desperate, each time offering different justifications or making new demands. I blocked them all. My mother never called. She'd accepted her fate with a resignation that was almost peaceful. According to her lawyer, she spent her days in prison working in the library and attending religious services. Whether it was genuine redemption or just a survival strategy, I didn't know and didn't care. A year after the trial, Nana's boutique was thriving. She'd designed a wedding dress for a celebrity client, and the resulting publicity had brought customers from across the country. She'd hired an assistant manager so she didn't have to work grueling hours, and she'd started a scholarship fund for young women studying fashion design. I'm thinking about writing a book, she told me one Sunday as we sat in her restored garden, drinking tea and watching hummingbirds dart between the flowers. About survival, about starting over, about not letting other people define your worth. You should, I said. You have a story worth telling. We have a story, she corrected. You saved my life, Maya. You gave up your life in Singapore, your friends, your routine. You gave up so much for me. I didn't give up anything important. I gained something more valuable than I could have found anywhere else. I gained back the relationship I should have protected all along. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. Not because you're successful or wealthy or smart, although you're all of those things. I'm proud because you're good. You're truly good. And that's rarer than any amount of money. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you ever regret it? Going so hard after them? Putting your own mother and brother in prison?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. Did I regret it? No, I said finally. I regret that it had to happen. I regret that they made choices that led to this. But I don't regret holding them accountable. If I'd let them get away with it, they would have killed you, and they would have done it to someone else eventually. Some people need to face consequences to understand that actions matter. Do you think they understand now? I think Devin understands that he can't charm his way out of everything anymore. I think Dad understands that his schemes have limits. And I think Mom understands that she chose the wrong side. I paused. But understanding isn't the same as changing. They might leave prison and do the same things again. Or they might actually grow. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. You've developed wisdom beyond your years, Nana said. I had a good teacher. That evening, as I drove back to my condo in Brickell, I got a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of a woman in an orange jumpsuit, older and harder than I remembered. My mother. Below the photo was a message. I heard Mama reopen the boutique. Tell her I'm happy for her. Tell her I understand why she can't forgive me. But I hope someday she'll know I'm sorry. You too, Maya. I'm sorry for the mother I wasn't and the grandmother I prevented us all from being. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it, to maintain the clean break I'd made. But another part of me, the part Nana had nurtured, recognized that forgiveness wasn't the same as reconciliation. I could acknowledge her apology without welcoming her back into my life. I typed a brief response. I'll tell her. I hope you find peace. Then I turned off my phone and went inside my apartment. Tomorrow I had meetings with investors for a new venture I was starting, a fund specifically designed to help elderly people who'd been financially exploited by family members. Leonard was helping me structure it as a nonprofit, and we'd already identified a dozen cases where we could make a difference. The work would be hard, the stories would be heartbreaking, but if I could prevent even one person from experiencing what Nana had gone through, it would be worth it. 6 months later, Nana turned 88. This time, the birthday party was exactly what it should have been, a celebration of life, love, and survival. We held it at the boutique, which she decorated with white orchids and twinkling lights. The guest list included her employees, her customers who'd become friends, neighbors, and a few distant relatives who'd proven themselves trustworthy. There were no ice sculptures or champagne towers. There was a simple sheet cake from her favorite bakery and homemade Haitian food prepared by women from her church. There was laughter and music and joy. I stood back and watched her hold court, her face glowing with happiness. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost. Her hair was styled in elegant locks. She wore a dress she designed herself, a flowing creation in turquoise that made her look regal. Someone had set up a photo booth, and I watched as guests took pictures with Nana, everyone wanting to capture a moment with this remarkable woman. When it was my turn, she pulled me close and whispered, "Make a wish with me." "What are we wishing for?" I asked. "For all the women who are trapped right now, who are being hurt by people who should protect them. We're wishing that someone hears them, that someone saves them, that they find their strength." We closed our eyes together, and I felt the weight of that wish settle over me like a mantle. This wasn't just about Nana anymore. This was about every grandmother, every mother, every woman who'd been made to feel worthless by family, who saw them only as resources to exploit. When I opened my eyes, I saw Leonard approaching with a serious expression. "Maya, could I have a word?" We stepped into the back office. He pulled out his phone and showed me a news article. Devin's parole hearing is next month. He's trying to get early release for good behavior. My stomach clenched. Kenny? Unlikely given the severity of his crimes, but he's putting together character witnesses, claiming he's rehabilitated. I wanted you to know in case you want to file a victim impact statement opposing the parole. I looked back through the office window at Nana, laughing at something one of her designers had said. She'd built a new life from the ashes of the old one. She was happy, productive, surrounded by people who valued her. Yes, I said. Prepare the statement. He served less than 2 years of a 15-year sentence. He hasn't learned anything. He's just manipulating a new audience. I'll draft it this week. The parole hearing was held in a sterile room at the correctional facility. Devin sat at a table in a prison-issued jumpsuit, looking thinner and harder than I remembered. His lawyer, an overworked public defender, presented his case. Devin had completed anger management classes, participated in a religious study group, and mentored younger inmates. Then it was my turn to speak. I stood before the parole board, and I didn't hold back. Devin Baptiste hasn't changed, I said. He's learned how to play the system, just like he played everyone his entire life. He's learned which boxes to check to look reformed. But reform requires genuine remorse, and he's never shown that. When he testified at his trial, he blamed my grandmother for her own abuse. He called her confused and difficult. He said he was accessing his inheritance early, as if she'd already agreed to die on his schedule. One of the board members leaned forward. Ms. Baptiste, we understand you're angry, but the purpose of incarceration is rehabilitation. If Mr. Baptiste has genuinely worked to better himself, has he paid back a single dollar of what he stole? I interrupted. Has he apologized to my grandmother directly? Has he done anything except the minimum required to game the system? The board member looked at Devin's lawyer, who shifted uncomfortably. My client has been working through his issues in therapy. That's not an answer, I said. He stole $500,000. He broke his grandmother's arm. He locked her in a closet and let her starve. And now, after less than 2 years, he wants to walk free because he took a few classes? No, absolutely not. He needs to serve his full sentence. The victims in this case, my grandmother and every other elderly person who's watching, deserve to know that actions have consequences. The hearing ended without a decision, but 2 weeks later, Leonard called with the news. Parole denied. Devin would serve at least 5 more years before his next hearing. I didn't tell Nana about the hearing. There was no point in bringing old trauma back to the surface. She was too busy designing a new collection inspired by traditional Haitian textiles, working with artisans in Port-au-Prince to source authentic fabrics. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. 5 years passed. Nana's boutique became a landmark in Miami, featured in bridal magazines and style blogs. She trained dozens of young designers, many of whom went on to open their own businesses. She became a spokesperson for elder rights, speaking at conferences and lobbying for stronger protections against financial exploitation. My nonprofit grew as well. We helped hundreds of elderly people recover stolen assets, find safe housing, and prosecute family members who'd abused them. The work was exhausting and often heartbreaking, but it was also deeply meaningful. Every case we won felt like a small victory for Nana, for every victim who'd suffered in silence. I never married, never had children of my own. My life was full enough with work and with Nana and with the community of strong women we'd built around us. Sometimes people would ask if I regretted not having a traditional family, and I'd think about my parents and Devin, about what family had meant in that context. I have a family, I'd say. It's just not defined by biology. When Nana was 93, her health began to decline naturally. Not from neglect or abuse, but from the simple fact that bodies wear out. She'd lived a full, rich life, and she was ready to rest. We moved her into my home where I could care for her personally, hiring nurses for the medical aspects, but handling everything else myself. One evening, as I helped her into bed, She looked at me with clear eyes and said, "You saved me twice, you know." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Once when you pulled me out of that closet, and once when you showed me that life was worth living after everything they did. You gave me purpose again. You gave me hope. You saved me too," I said. "You taught me what strength looks like, what integrity looks like. You taught me that being kind isn't the same as being weak. Promise me something," she said, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "Anything. Promise me you'll keep fighting for the others. The ones who don't have a granddaughter to rescue them. Promise me you'll be their voice." In 2 parts, she smiled satisfied. "Good. Then I can rest." She passed away peacefully 3 days later, surrounded by people who loved her. Her funeral was standing room only, attended by hundreds of people whose lives she'd touched. Former employees, grateful clients, women she'd mentored, families we'd helped through the nonprofit. The church overflowed with flowers and tears and stories of a life well lived. My parents and Devon weren't there. They'd been informed, but they were still in prison, their parole hearings consistently denied. I'd made sure of that, filing opposition statements every single time, reminding the board of what they'd done and why they couldn't be trusted. In her will, Nana left the boutique to her employees, setting up a cooperative structure so they could all share in its success. She left her house to me, along with a letter that I didn't open until I was alone. "My dearest Maya," it read in her elegant script, "by the time you read this, I'll be dancing with your grandfather again. Don't be sad for me. I lived longer and better than I had any right to expect, especially after those dark months in the closet. You asked me once if I regretted letting them live in my home, if I regretted trusting them. The truth is, I do regret it. I regret giving them opportunities to hurt me. I regret believing their promises and excuses. That I don't regret the outcome. Because you came home, because you fought for me, because together we built something beautiful from the ashes of their cruelty. We helped people. We changed laws. We made the world a little bit safer for vulnerable people. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. And with your help, I bloomed again. Continue the work. Continue fighting. Continue showing the world what real family looks like. Not biology, but loyalty. Not obligation, but love. Not taking, but giving. You are my legacy. You are my triumph. You are everything I hoped you'd become and more. All my love, now and always, Nana. I sat in her restored garden, the letter in my lap, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of grief, although I grieved, but tears of gratitude. Gratitude that I'd listened to my instincts and come home when something felt wrong. Gratitude that I'd had the resources to fight back. Gratitude that I've gotten more time with her, time to build memories that weren't tainted by fear and abuse. The house felt empty without her, but it wasn't sad. It was peaceful. I could feel her presence in every room she'd reclaimed, in every flower she'd planted, in every piece of furniture she'd restored. She'd taken back her sanctuary, and now she'd left it to me as a reminder. A reminder that we are not defined by what others do to us, but by how we rise from it. A reminder that strength isn't about never falling, it's about standing back up. A reminder that family is a choice, not a genetic obligation. I continued running the nonprofit, expanding it to 3 cities. We helped thousands of elderly people escape financial and physical abuse. We lobbied for stronger laws. We trained social workers and police officers to recognize the signs of elder exploitation. We built a network of attorneys willing to take on these cases pro bono. And every single time we saved someone, every time we helped a grandmother or grandfather escape a situation like Nana's, I felt her with me. I felt her approval, her pride, her love. Years later, I received a letter from my mother. She'd been released from prison after serving 8 years of her sentence. The letter was postmarked from a small town in North Carolina. Dear Maya, it began. I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm writing anyway because I need you to know what happened after. Prison changed me, though not in the way people expect. It didn't make me suddenly realize the error of my ways through some dramatic epiphany. It was slower than that, more painful. It was watching other women get visits from their families while I sat alone. It was hearing stories about grandchildren and holidays and realizing I'd destroyed any chance of being part of those moments. I got a job at a nursing home after I was released. Ironic, isn't it? I clean rooms and help residents with their meals. I see families visit, bringing flowers and cards and love. And I see the residents who have no one, who sit alone while everyone else celebrates birthdays and holidays. I see Mama in every one of them, and I see what we did to her, what I allowed to happen, what I participated in. The guilt is crushing sometimes, but I keep working, because I think maybe in some small way I can balance the scales. I can give to other people's mothers and grandmothers the care I denied my own. I heard about the nonprofit you started. I heard you're helping people like Mama. I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. You became everything I should have been. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that some of us do change. It's too late for me to make things right with Mama. It's too late to be a real mother to you. But maybe it's not too late for me to be a decent human being to the people who still need help. I hope you're happy. I hope you're surrounded by people who love you the way you deserve to be loved from the beginning. With regret and respect, Claudette. I read that letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a box with Nana's journal and the other documents from that terrible time. I didn't respond. I didn't reach out, but I also didn't throw it away. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a box with Nana's journal and the other documents from that terrible time. I didn't respond. I didn't reach out, but I also didn't throw it away. Because change is real, even if it comes too late. Redemption is possible, even if it doesn't erase the past. And sometimes, the greatest punishment is living with the full understanding of what you've destroyed. As I sit in Nana's garden, watching the sun set over Miami, I think about the journey we took together. From that horrible night when I found her dying in a closet, to the years of joy and purpose we shared afterward. From victim to survivor to thriver. She taught me that revenge isn't about hurting the people who hurt you. Real revenge is outliving them, outgrowing them, building something beautiful from the rubble they left behind. Real revenge is living so well, so fully, that their cruelty becomes nothing more than a footnote in your story. They thought they could break her. They thought they could take everything. But they underestimated the strength of a woman who'd built an empire from nothing, and they underestimated the loyalty of a granddaughter who'd learned from the best. My phone buzzes with a notification. Another case just came in. An 82-year-old man in Tampa whose children have been forging his signature on checks. The police don't want to get involved because it's a family matter. The bank won't freeze the accounts without a court order. He's scared and alone and running out of time. I forward the case details to our Tampa office and make a note to follow up tomorrow. Tonight, I'm going to sit in this garden, drink a glass of wine, and remember the woman who taught me that the most powerful thing you can do is survive, and then help others do the same. They tried to bury us. They tried to silence us. They tried to make us disappear. But we were seeds. And look at the garden we grew. If you feel my words, show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me from which city you belong, so I can see how far a woman's impactful voice can reach. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. This is Maya Baptiste, granddaughter of Josephine Baptiste, and I'm here to tell you, if someone you love is being hurt, speak up. If you see something wrong, do something about it. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let fear or family loyalty or the belief that it's not your business stop you from saving a life. Because every person has value. Every elder deserves dignity. And every family member who abuses that trust deserves to face the full weight of justice. We planted a seed of justice in that courtroom, and it's growing into a forest. A forest of safety, of protection, of second chances for people who thought they had none. That's our legacy. That's our revenge. And it's only just beginning.